seems as if a man of good faith has prevailed, and perhaps any bad faith will fade away, and that would be a blessing, I believe.
Can I just interrupt a sec, Trevor? Sorry. I forgot to mention we're going to record this. If anyone has a problem and doesn't want to be seen on the recording, you can actually you can stop your video. But otherwise, we're going to record this for those who said they can't be here but would like to see, if that's okay.
Thank you, Warren. Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to talk about a little bit about my childhood, if that's not too presumptuous. We had no money when we were little, and we were born and lived in and around Birtle. We were emerging from the Second World War. Rationing for some things was still in place, something that there were reminders of during the beginning of the lockdown when people started hoarding. Rationing almost came back in some areas. What was life at the school, Birtle School, that made my early years such a joy? I went to a village school. The school was attached to the church, and next to the church, as always, was of course the pub, the Church Inn. It was also a place of great love and faith, the church and the pub, I believe. So the church was at the centre, the heart of the community. I didn't really appreciate that the people from the church were giving witness to us all at the time. I was talking about when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, and I didn't occur to me what a sense of purpose, a moral compass, and the gospel message to love and serve one another that those people were actually putting across us, teaching us, guiding us. The people I'm talking about had served one way or another, some in the First World War, most certainly many in the Second World War. Our headmaster and our minister had both been army officers, and the redeeming, or the feature that I got to learn over the next so many years, you couldn't get them to talk about it. They did not want to say what they'd done. Only slowly did it emerge, the sacrifices that had been made by men and women all through the conflicts. They were all guiding us to cope and appreciate a changing world. Also, what was being instilled in us was a respect for all creatures that share our planet, but for all human beings, no matter where they come from, what they looked like, or what they believed. In my case, the respect was rooted in my Christian faith. But as far as I know, all religions share the feeling of love and respect. It seems to me it goes across all religions. The reason we were able to grow up in a country that was free was because people gave their lives, and so remembrance was very much part of our lives, faith and remembrance. We have symbols that are so important that every year we do at remembrance services. We have poppies, statues, the cenotaph, silhouettes of soldiers, poppy wreaths. They remind us about the wars. We need to acknowledge Remembrance Day so that it won't happen again. We have to learn lessons from the past, and I believe we have. God says we should be loving and kind. During the course of this dreadful pandemic, there have been some incredible acts of love and kindness. And I just wanted to mention Marcus Rashford, because that's a remarkable thing. A young man who earns money that some of us can only dream about in a week, more than perhaps the Prime Minister, whoever that happens to be, earns in a year. But Marcus Rashford knows what it's like to have been poor, yet he hasn't forgotten. He's out there battling. And a remarkable thing, if I may say so, we all know that Marcus Rashford plays for Manchester United. I've even heard City fans, Blues, saying what a great guy he is. Now, to me, that's quite remarkable. And that must have taken a lot of teeth gnashing and so on. I do believe our love, kindness and faith are things that we'll need in abundance during the challenging times ahead. I've listed just a few, but there are many. There's Brexit. We don't talk about it anymore, but it's still there and it will bring challenges. Coronavirus. Sounds like we're on the verge of a vaccine. Wonderful, but it's going to take time. Climate change and saving our planet. Mental health, a massive issue as the fallout from the pandemic. And most of all, something that we never shook off yet, poverty, child poverty and poverty. One other human characteristic we will need in space is humour. the ability to laugh at ourselves. And I just saw a report on BBC the other night from a young woman who was called Corona, which you can imagine is quite difficult. Now, Corona to a lot of us is a drink we used to get. It used to be delivered to us on a wagon. But this young lady's called Corona, and she quite kind of lightheartedly shared with us how difficult it had been when we could do it to book a table, to go about and say, what's your name? It's Corona. Oh my goodness. So, but she could laugh at it. Although I'm not going to speak for much longer because I really do want to listen to what other people have to say. I just wanted to say that although the future is challenging, I'm not only positive about it, I'm enthusiastic. Our ability to remember, to love, to have faith is alive and kicking among our young people. I've been fortunate to spend during the time of, as mayor and other times school governors, and with Sharon and Paul, Father Paul, some time with our young people. Our future, I would like to say, is in safe hands. We have a lot to face over the next few years, but I don't have any doubt at all that we will face it. People sometimes ask the question, if our young people were asked to do what was done in 1914 and 1939, heaven forbid they have to fight in a war, a conflict. But in terms of standing up for us, for our country, our region, our Europe, our planet, our world, they'll do it. And I have no doubt whatsoever about that. I just wanted to say it was a pleasure to have been involved in this very special event. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening, and God bless you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. That sounded good enough to be an election speech. You touched on quite a lot in there. The importance of remembrance, the importance of us engaging in all sorts of things, combining faith, combining remembrance. Very clearly, as a committed Christian, it's all important to you, and it's all indicative of recognizing the sacrifice and everything else that so many young men, young people, and not so young as well, there for us. The second part is we're moving into going to move towards our panel. Now we we're going to involve Trevor in our panel. We're going to involve Rabbi Arnie Saunders, who as well as being an Orthodox rabbi and local councillor as well. We've got too many local councillors tonight. Sorry, Richard. So there's Rabbi Saunders also been an army chaplain, military chaplain as well, and can come with that. And we were due to have an ex-serviceman from the Muslim community, Kamran Khan, but he's unfortunately been unable to join us this evening. Spoke with him yesterday. He was very much looking forward to it. I think he'd had a lot to offer. So unless we have a member of the Muslim community who has military experience and can actually and wants to fill in for us, we might just have two members of the panel to start, and we'll see if they want to say something, and then open this up to questions. But Sharon, could you please sort of lead us on to the panel for the evening?
Yeah. Just before we go on to the panel, I'd just like to just cover a short bit, just a snippet. This was thrown at me at a Faith Forum meeting a few weeks ago, and it was like, oh, you can get something on this, can't you? Just a little bit. So I have just a little bit. And it's basically, again, faith and remembrance. And it's just a little bit about the different faiths that came together in the wars. And if you'll excuse me reading my notes, then I won't miss anything out. But we're here today as an act of remembrance. Generations of people have taken this time to remember and give thanks to those who gave their lives in both world wars. And as Samara said, other wars as well, like the Falklands, but concentrating on the world wars. As a group, as the Bury Faith Forum, we must look at why we come together and give thanks for all those from all religions and all faith groups who came together and fought and worked in various ways for justice and freedom. For example, in the First World War, Christians, Jews, and Buddhists entered the military in unprecedented numbers. Like their fellow citizens, they proudly joined the military and fought the enemy. Religious groups also sponsored some 10,000 military chaplains and initiated various ministries and in and around military bases. And in World War II, this number was 14,000, and they were just ministers and chaplains. In World War II, it's estimated that 2.5 Muslims contributed to the Allied forces, either as soldiers or labourers. Also, and known for their bravery, Sikhs were more prominently found in the Indian Army. Although the army also consisted of several individuals from other religions, many people belonging to faiths such as Hindus were rarely found in combat, but provided much needed support alongside civilians. Regiments were even formed strictly with members of the Sikh religion and, of course, those very brave men of Her Majesty's Gurkhas. With over 30 countries involved in the war, World War II absolutely reached the point of being the largest, deadliest, and most destructive multinational war to date. Over 50 million people lost their lives over the 6 years between 1939 and 1945. War doesn't differentiate between peoples, nations, or faiths, and documents have been uncovered that have shown instances of imams, priests, and rabbis learning each other's burial ceremonies and prayers to lay the dead to rest on the battlefield. Truly, in times of war, the prayer of all faiths and all nations, and especially today, is to remember those of all faiths who fought alongside each other for freedom and peace across the world. Thank you. Now, if we could have our panelists as Warren's introduced them. Thank you. If anyone's got any questions they want to ask the panelists.
Well, let's unmute Rabbi Saunders if we can. Can you get yourself unmuted, Arnie? Oh,
there we go.
yeah, perfect. So I know Trevor said a few words. Arnie, do you want to say anything just to start us off with the panel? As it's just you and Trevor on the panel at the moment. So.
Well, obviously, I'm speaking later at the end about remembrance, but I'll just say very briefly. You mentioned that I was Jewish chaplain to the forces. There were and are 5 multi-faith, if you like, chaplains, or certainly major chaplains. There are now more than one Jewish chaplain, mainly part-time in cadet forces and so on. There is one full-time chaplain, Major Rabbi Reuben Livingston, who took over from me. But there was a Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, and Buddhist, and we sort of, were part of what is called the Royal Army Chaplains Department. We had the grand title of CCM, which stands for Civilian Chaplains to the Military. We were technically civilians, but we were chaplains, although I was also uniformed as a cadet force multi-faith chaplain to the Greater Manchester Army Cadet Force, whose headquarters, by the way, are in Bury, the borough of Bury, in Ramsbottom. Just outside Ramsbottom, and we ministered particularly to people from our own faiths, and we we represented our faith, if you like, to the military, and we represented the military to our faith. So one of the things which I did, which I'm very proud of, and there's not too many people who can say they did this, even senior, military brass, is I worked on rewriting the Queen's regulations, as you do, because the Queen's regulations, which I'm sure most of you will know, is if you like, the Bible of the army. Well, not the army, the military. Each branch has got its own Queen's regulations, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. But they were a little bit out of date because they needed updating to take account of diversity and the sort of things that we would be concerned about today that maybe 20, 30 years ago, people were not concerned about. So we were literally rewriting the Queen's regulations, and in some instances, even making mandatory things which in the past had actually been forbidden. I won't go into details, but you can imagine the sorts of things I'm talking about. Now the forces are wonderfully diverse, and there really is no barrier to anybody whatsoever joining the armed services, the armed forces, as long as, of course, they're physically fit to do so. Even disabilities which don't affect their fighting capability, and there are many roles which don't involve fighting, if you like, on the front line. Then the forces, will take those people. So I had a very, very fulfilling time as chaplain to the forces. We went out to the Falkland Islands, to other countries. They preferred to keep us away from theatres of war unless it was absolutely essential. My Muslim colleague, Imam Asim Hafiz, who was a great friend of mine, he actually eventually spent 3 months in theatre, if you like, we call it, because he was acting, if you like, as not just a sort of interpreter, that sort of not giving him his full role, but as a interpreter and a peacemaker, somebody advising the military on the ground and engaging with the local community. And eventually he actually went to work in Whitehall, where he's got a very senior role there. But again, one of my highlights was entertaining, if you like, a group of very senior imams, mullahs from Afghanistan, who came over to London, and we hosted them in the Foreign Office, and we had the most wonderful discussions. They were telling me of the Jewish people they know, and it really was an absolutely wonderful time. Today, of course, as has been said, is Armistice Day. It's the 11th of the 11th. This week also we commemorated Kristallnacht. Maybe I'll speak a little bit about that later. So these are very, very poignant times, and obviously very difficult times, and has been said with regards to the coronavirus and so on. I would just say, Councillor Holt, I'm not going to be political. You mentioned, Warren, that we've got a lot of councillors, but I think they're quite well balanced, because I think you've got Tory and Labour. I would just say about President-elect Biden that indeed he certainly is a man of faith, and in his acceptance speech, which I listened to in the wee hours of Sunday morning, he actually quoted from the Old Testament. He quoted the famous verses from Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, that La Kol Zaman, there's a time for everything, including a time to heal. And I thought that was really impressive that he quoted from Ecclesiastes. He also, I think, mentioned a hymn as well. So he certainly is a man of faith. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, lovely. Hopefully as well, it's also a time to remember and a time maybe to work towards peace. So we'll open it up for questions. I believe Tahir, you have a question. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Chair. Well, first, if I could just introduce myself, I'm Councillor Tahir Rafiq. Just to let you know, I mean, my grandfather was in the Second World War. He did survive and did come back, died a few years ago. I think it's very important, the days like Armistice Day, the Remembrance, it's very important for all faiths that we get together and we remember those who gave their lives for our better future, for what we are today. We owe it to them, basically. So it's very important. And in fact, Islam, I mean, I am a Muslim by religion, and Islam encourages, what Islam says is that you should always remember your elders, you should remember your history, and you know, and pass it on. And that's what Islamic teaching is all about. So I think this is very good, and it's a wonderful event, and well done to all the organizers who've organized this event here today, and a lot of attendees here. Now, just from what Sharon Beach was saying, and I mean, if I could just go a little bit more in depth, if I could just sort of like, I'm not going to take long, it's going to be literally a minute or so, but I mean, it's right. I mean, it's easily, I mean, often it's easy to forget the millions of Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and other ethnic minorities and other religions, you know, who have served in the British Armed Forces in both World War I and II, get forgotten, you know, forgotten. So I was very pleased when Sharon Beach, you know, made a reference to the 2.5 million Muslims who fought in the Second World War. Well, you know, of them, 400,000, in fact, gave their lives. It was 400,000 Muslim soldiers who actually, you know, died alongside the other, you know, soldiers at the time. So, rightly, it is important that we remember each and every one of them, as well as each and every soldier who gave his life from other religions as well. If I could just go a little further, I mean, after the Muslim soldiers at the time, I mean, there's one that comes in history. I mean, it's mentioned quite often. It's a guy called Cllr Khan. Now, Cllr Khan was the first Muslim to receive the Victoria Cross for defending his position when all in his company were actually killed. Sepoy Ali Haider, who was also awarded the Victoria Cross for his conspicuous gallantry, initiative, and determination in the face of heavy odds at the time. So, yes, I mean, I think, I mean, it's good, and I'm very pleased for this event, and I like everybody else, surely I pay tribute to each and every one who gave their lives at the time. And even, in fact, there are a few, I mean, my grandfather passed away 2016. So there still may be veteran, you know, people still around who were there at the time in the wars. So it is important to remember each and every one of them. And I'm very proud of this event today, and I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tahir. I noticed that our founding and current chair of Bury Faith Forum would like to say something. I assume that's why you have the hand raised. So.
Thank you very much for letting me in there. Yeah, thank you, Warren. Yeah, just to, I actually, back what our councillor just said, you know, one of my grandchildren after school, he actually came to me and said, he calls me Abba. Have you actually were part of the Second World War? And I said, son, no, I'm not that old. But some of my family members actually were actually involved in the Second World War. They were in the Indian army when the British Raj was there. And I think just like many families, I think you'll find in United Kingdom that their family members have actually participated in the Great War. And it was actually fought for the humanity, peace and love for all the people on the earth. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to actually be peaceful and very, very friendly with each other as well. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding takes place sometime, but inshallah, as we say, we'll pull through. I know we're going through very difficult times at the moment, but that's what brings us together, to be honest. And it's very, very important that we mustn't lose the sight of that again, even though when we come out of the pandemic, that we should continue to work together. And I think we've seen a good example recently. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liaquat. Anyone else wants to ask a question at the moment? If not, I have one for our panelists. No? I can't see anyone sort of as I go between the two screens. Okay. Well, Trevor and Arnie, a quick question for you. How important do you think it is that faith communities do get involved in some significant acts of remembrance for Remembrance Day? And almost following on from that, and do you think it's more important now because of recent wars that we've been involved in and peacekeeping efforts where we've had servicemen killed and maimed more recently? And a very sort of thing I was just adding on to that is almost three questions. Or do you think interfaith is better than the faith communities, or is there a role for both? Who wants to take that first?
Does Trevor want to go first?
Okay, yeah, absolutely, Warren. The fact that communities should get involved. I mean, one of the slightly diverging a bit from it, every council meeting starts with a prayer. It's either from a rabbi, from a priest, or from a minister, or indeed an imam. And so our communities revolve around our council, our town hall, although you can't actually get in the town hall at the minute because it's falling down, the roof has collapsed. So don't try and get in the town hall at the minute. You can go to reception, but no further than that. So I think it is absolutely vital, just as Councillor Rafiq has said, that all communities do get involved. And it's the pandemic is sometimes compared to the war. And in a sense it is. That spirit that was there is emerging again, has emerged. But it isn't like the war, it's different. We've learned a lot since the conflicts. And I do think it's absolutely crucial. I think rather than being led by our generation, we're being led by the young people, by the children, young folk. They are so aware of the threat to our planet, so aware of the poverty issues that they are leading us. So I would say it's absolutely crucial that communities get involved, whatever that means, and interfaith or whatever we want to call it. This is crucial. Just to echo the thoughts of things like tonight, we shouldn't just do it. I know we don't, we do it other times, but there are so many festivals, so many things that we should celebrate as long as remember all through the year. And I think we should do more of it. It can only be good. Our world is in a bit of turmoil. Hopefully things will settle down in America. There are many still difficult things going on, people not respecting or loving each other. So we've a lot of work to do, but it's got to be that we get together to do it. People of good faith, if I might say so.
Thanks, Trevor. And Arnie?
Yeah, I think it is very important. It's very important for its own sake, as perhaps we'll speak in a minute when we say a few words about remembrance. Obviously, it's very important for each faith, I believe, to remember their fallen ones in a sort of faith-specific way. So, for example, obviously the Jewish people will understand this. we would want to say a Kel Malei Rachamim or a Kaddish, a traditional Jewish memorial prayer for the Jewish fallen. So there is that, and indeed the Jewish community for many years now have actually had our own parade at the Cenotaph in Whitehall on the Sunday following Remembrance Sunday. This year it's going to be virtual. People can log in and follow it, but it will not actually be from Whitehall. And this is so that we can honor our dead, if you like, in our own way. But there is another very important point, and I think Councillor Holt was touching on this, and that is to show the world at large, the country at large, just what a contribution other faiths, other ethnicities, if you like, played, because there's a lot of people that don't realize that, and there's, as we know, a lot of prejudice, and the more we are seen to take part in remembrance parades, etc., the more we say that how many people we've lost. Like we heard the other councillor a few moments ago saying how many Muslims were lost. The Jewish community volunteered beyond the numbers that were expected, if you like, proportionally had more people killed in the world wars. And the more that we explain that to people, I think the more people understand the contribution that was made, and hopefully that will do something to eradicate prejudice, because when people say, oh, well, you know, what have they done for Britain or whatever it is, we can say with great pride, actually, we did. Our ancestors laid down their lives for you next to their brothers and sisters from the Christian community or whatever it was. So yeah, I think it is very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you both. And I think that's why we felt it was important on Sharon's initiative to actually have read, to consider and hear this evening how many from different faith communities and different ethnic groups were involved in the world wars and since then as well. Imam Hassanat, could I ask you, you have a hand raised, and then we'll have time at least for Reverend Julian as well to ask a question.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you all. Thank you so much for inviting me to this war. It's good to be part of it, even though we can't be physically together. And you know how much I love your company, so it's difficult being so far. My heart is crying. Just a question. I know we've had a few statements tonight. When you got a few councillors in, you can never keep the politics out. So I'm sure most people were quite happy that Biden got elected. But one of the things that really kind of it surprises me, and we don't hear it mentioned, just to balance out some of the partisan comments that went on before. And you never hear this from a Muslim again, by the way, someone Muslim defending Trump. But one of the really amazing things about the last 4 years, especially on the world level, is that the lack of wars is quite surprising. New wars. We can sit here all night, count the misdeeds and misdemeanors of Mr. Trump, President Trump. But one of the things that I kind of gives me hope and was positives from the last 4 years, that we didn't have more bodies being counted or added to the numbers that have already been. So when we talk about wars, especially when we're talking about politics, I think holding, you know, the leadership to account, regardless of whether they're right or left or central or whatever, holding them to account of the wars they start is very, very important. And for us as the members of the public, and events like this, I think are really great for remembrance, but for me, they have more of a reflection role than remembrance, because if we reflect on what happened, especially I like to differentiate personally between World War I and World War II. and being an amateur student of history, that the First World War didn't lead to that many countries being liberated. It actually led to the other way. As you might know, many parts of the old Muslim caliphate or the Ottoman Empire was divided between the French and the British and so forth. So it led to actually occupation and enslavement of a large number of people. So we need to be very truthful. And I would like to ask the panel, how important is it to be truthful in our remembrance and not to kind of brush over? Because one of the things that happens, especially when I get students who come to me and they get to university level, they kind of start questioning some of the things which they were taught in high school. We were taught this rosy picture of this happened, that happened, but when they start studying and realizing, it kind of puts them at a loss. Hang on a minute, what is the truth? So the question really is, do we need to be just get together and have these events and remember and reflect on what happened, or do we need to be truthful as well as to what happened and the aftermath of what took place? Because even some of the remnants of the Second World War are still with us. Some of the conflicts that started at that time are still unresolved to this day, and they are causing pain and suffering all around the world and different parts of the world. So how important is accuracy as well as remembrance and reflection?
Thank you, Hassanat. So either of you want to sort of answer that one?
Happy to. Thank you, Hassanat, and it's lovely to see you again.
Great to see you
could
too.
I just, for a minute, be light-hearted and say, and this is not meant to offend anybody, what a fine collection of beards are on show tonight.
The last time I saw you, you didn't have one.
I've been cultivating this one for about 6 or 7 years, and I feel quite inadequate tonight. There are some smashing beards. Absolutely agree with you, Hassanat. I mean, again, just to digress from it, one of my abiding memories of when I was growing up was my father was from a family of 14 children, and he had 6 sisters who were all maiden aunts as a result of the First World War. That had such a dramatic effect on our family and our culture and everything. I think one of the things, the war, I see it now, I agree with you about unresolved things from coming out of the Second World War, but perhaps without getting into the criticising President Trump, there is no need for that now, is the whole world is on the move. People are taking incredible risks to reach safe havens, fleeing persecution of one kind and another. There is great world poverty, massive world poverty. Those things do need truth, and they need action from powerful governments. President Trump did not help that in any way. And therefore, I think we do need that. The wars, thankfully, are behind us, or there are still conflicts, but the new challenges are there, and they're just as dangerous. The challenge to our planet, the danger to our planet and global warming, poverty, a massive one. The whole hangover from mental health and people fleeing one conflict to another. So I think we have wars still to fight. Thankfully, we're not fighting each other, and hopefully we can come together and still resolve some of those unresolved things, as you've said. But clarity, truth, absolutely, and faith. Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor. Arnie, do you want to address that?
Yeah, just to say, firstly, again, I don't want to get involved with President Trump, but
yes, sorry.
He certainly has many faults, but as the Imam said, he certainly did some good. And one of the things I'd like to mention is that he literally very recently, in the last few weeks and months, has managed to broker peace deals between Israel and certain Arab countries, and I hope that Joe Biden will continue that. I'm sure he will, and that is absolutely great. And my view is that eventually we will be able to resolve one of the last unresolved problems in certainly in the region, not the world, is the Israel-Palestine situation. But I'm not going to say more about that. I just want to say one other thing in terms of remembrance and what have you, and in terms of the First World War, which the Imam said. I also fancy myself as a bit of an amateur historian, and you're absolutely right, Imam. The First World War probably left more questions than answers. And I believe that the unresolved questions and some of the injustices of the aftermath of the First World War led directly to the Second World War. I mean, let's face, and all that involved, including the Holocaust. Let's be honest, Hitler would not have come to power had, let's say, the First World War had never taken place. We would not have had Hitler. Hitler came to power because the First World War happened. Probably the nations were too harsh on Germany, leaving the ground fertile for Hitler. Now, you could argue that perhaps they should have stamped down on Germany and Hitler, before it was too late. But the fact is, it was unresolved business from the First World War, and clearly there was unresolved business from the Second World War as well. So you're absolutely right, and yes, we should teach that, Imam. We should not resile from that. The only thing is, it's all very well people at this sort of meeting and, imams and rabbis and priests and educated people discussing these sort of finer points. I think we have to be a little bit careful expecting every person in the street or children to be able to pick up on what are really the finer points of these things. But you're absolutely right. 100, couldn't agree more.
Thank you. See, you started, Hassanat. So hopefully everyone here does have an inkling at least of what we're all talking about and referring to. There are 3 more people wanting to ask questions, and I'm aware we're starting to run over time because there's 3 other things I want to address. So can I ask Julian, Jeremy and Jan to ask their questions? Try and keep them brief, and then Trevor and Arnie to answer them briefly before we move on to the last part. So Julian?
Okay, thank you, Warren. So very briefly, if we're talking about remembrance, and that remembrance is partly about the way we tell the story. So we've heard something very positive this evening and helpful, reminding that often the story is told from a sort of very white, story of war, very white English perspective, and that's been challenged. Woven into that, how best do we tell the story that people of faith contribute to peace and well-being of society as an after effect of war?
So thank you, Julian. Jeremy, do you want to ask your question? Oh, okay, we're trying to get you unmuted. Hold on. I'm not sure why. Oh. Okay, well, we're unmuting Jeremy. Jan, do you want to ask your question?
Hi everyone. Thanks. It's been really good listening so far. It's not really much of a question, it's more of a reflection, and I'm glad to share that within this group. The fact that you have a multi-faith group speaks volumes already in itself, that there are conversations happening, there is the will to have that interfaith dialogue, and it goes on. And sometimes people may not roll their eyes and say, oh, not that again, it's disingenuous, or it's just at face value. But I really believe if people don't speak together, then you wouldn't work through those issues. When I'm reflecting about this year, and perhaps a couple of years actually, I would just reflect that it has been a polarizing year on all counts, in wealth, about health, about faith, about politics. It's just been deeply polarizing, and it's been grim. And I think going into the new year, looking at maybe we're going to get a vaccine and this, that, the other, and politics changing on that horizon, perhaps we should have more faith and be more optimistic that whatever's happened now in the past, where with the politics, where from the wars that we've been through, that we've experienced abroad, particularly today on Remembrance Day, is just moving on. We have no choice. We can look back at with regret and keep saying, if this happened, if that happened, but we just have to move forward. And it is the younger generations now that I can honestly say, when I was young, I was disconnected. What was the war about? It was nothing to do with me, or I didn't see myself or my family. It was nothing to do with us, you know. But now going forward, when you look at the Black Lives Matter campaign, we're looking at the future and how are we reimagining the future and presenting history, like you're saying, the way we present it, so that it's inclusive of all of us. We've all got a stake in it. We've all got young children and grandchildren, whatever, coming up in the world, and it's just imperative that we create this unity, that there's more that brings us together than divides us. Faith, we have our ways of how we practice faith and how we express that, but the main thing is we respect one another and we protect each other as well. So that going forward keeps me hopeful.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Very good, well made point. More than 30 seconds, but very well made and important point. And Jeremy.
Just really, it says in the Torah 169 times, Zachor, which means remember. We're told constantly to remember, and particularly at the end of the Torah, it says, "Remember the days of old. Ask your parents, ask your elders; they will tell you." And really, I think days like this, as well as thinking about obviously what happened during both First and Second World War, and indeed wars since, I think we also gives us a chance to think of what values have we always stood for? Have they been enhanced by events or not? Otherwise, it's very, very easy to forget where we've come from, and to forget, and therefore not really have much of an idea where we're going to. I think that's to me is the important thing. When I remember those who fell in both world wars, I think of what they were fighting for as much as anything else. And so I think we do need, we constantly need to remember those values. We could argue about the way some of them were necessarily interpreted, but yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Thank you. And does Trevor or Arnie want to answer any of those points? I know Richard wants to say something. We'll do that before we move on.
I think that's a very positive note to kind of what we've just had. I hope we can take up some of these points again and meet again very soon. It's been fascinating, but maybe I'm keen to hear from Richard and from Father Paul and the Rabbi.
Thank you. So, Arnie, do you want to say that, or do
only to say that, yeah, what Jeremy was saying about the many times it mentions Zachor, remember in one form or another, was sort of part of what I was going to say. I don't know if we're going to have time for it now.
We'll have 2 minutes each for that in a second. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that was going to form part of what will now be a very much truncated speech. But yeah, I know, absolutely, I agree with Jeremy. Yeah.
Thank you. So not sure we fully answered Julian, but I think the point was well made.
No, yeah.
So Richard, do you want to say anything before we move on to the last part?
Yeah,
5 minutes, apologies.
Thanks. Yeah, if you don't mind.
As long as you're brief.
Yeah, couple of points. Firstly, what Rabbi Saunders said about the causes of, the rise of the Nazis and World War I, and it just made me think actually that I'm not quite sure, because I don't know, but all I know is when we are in bad times, whether it's economics, COVID, whatever, minorities tend to get picked on and be the scapegoat, and I think that's really important. And I've seen a lot of anti-Semitism come out of the COVID conspiracies, and also a lot of Islamophobia come out of it. So that's just a warning. The other thing I wanted to say is that, one of the things I believe about interfaith and remembrance is that, and it was something that the Imam picked up on, is that, look, we're not going to agree on everything, right? But what is important is that we understand where our cousins and our co-religionists and other religions, where they're coming from. So I don't think we have to agree on everything. And, you know, and let's face it, the one thing that, you know, is kind of like never spoken about in interfaith is the Arab-Israel, the Israel-Palestine conflict. And actually, I think it should be talked about in dialogue. And it was hinted
Richard,
about.
before you open us any further, I have no problem about us actually looking at and discussing that, but you're actually moving away from the point.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that all we need to do is we need to understand where other people are coming from. And once you understand that, and the last thing I would say is that I always say the people that come to these meetings don't really need it. And what's important is carrying the message outside this meeting to our own communities and other communities. I think that's really important as well.
Thank you, Richard. The last part of the evening, and I apologise we're overrunning, but as often people slow to start asking questions or making points and then they want to. If you have to go, we'll fully understand that. But we talked about remembrance with faiths, but also the whole point of Remembrance Day. But remembrance itself is significant within each of our traditions as well. So I've asked Rabbi Arnie and I've asked Imam Hassanat and Father Paul each to say a couple of words about the importance of remembrance in their faiths, in our faiths. So do we go chronologically? Arnie, do you want to start? Here we go again. We'll try and get you unmuted. Oh.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. First of all, can I just congratulate Jan on what I thought was a very thoughtful question stroke comment, and absolutely, and I agree with Richard as well, and is it Julian? Right, so I've got quite a few notes here for what I think was going to be a 4 or 5 minute speech. So just to condense it into 2 minutes, as you've heard from Jeremy, the Torah, the Old Testament, mentions the word zachor, which means remember, in one form or another, many, many times, ranging from commandments to remember the Sabbath day, remember the fact that we were slaves, so therefore we should treat people who are slaves, or to use a modern context, refugees or whatever, with dignity, because we should remember that we were once in the same boat. We have to remember when we make the Kiddush, the sanctification of the Sabbath, not only do we fulfill the commandment of remembering the Sabbath, but we say in the blessing that it is by keeping the Sabbath, we are remembering the story of creation. We are remembering the Exodus from Egypt. So much of the Torah, if you like, revolves around the idea of remembrance, zikaron. We also must remember what our enemies did to us. Amalek, remember what Amalek did to us over the years, and all our enemies. We shouldn't forget, lo tishkach. But we must also remember our dead, our fallen, even remembering our parents and relatives, even if they didn't fall in war. We remember there are prayers such as the Yizkar prayer that we say on festivals. Ironically, on the most joyous days of the year, we remember our parents. We have Yom HaZikaron, when we remember those who fell in wars. Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, both the sort of the national one and the religious one. Tisha B'Av, the fast of Av, when we fast and we remember destruction of the temple, and so on. So the whole idea of remembering is very germane to Jewish life, to Jewish rituals, to Jewish prayers, and the idea of standing with our brothers and sisters from other faiths, other religions, other communities, in remembering on a day like this is very, very important. And of course, if we do not remember, then we forget. And if we do forget, I'm afraid to say that not only are we dishonoring the dead, but we are not remembering or learning from the lessons of history, which I believe is part of the ritual of remembering as well. And for all the other reasons that I said earlier, by showing our respect to the dead, we are showing the world at large just what contribution people of faith and creed made to the various wars, not just the 2 world wars. I'll stop there because I think I've had my time.
Thank you, Rabbi Arnie.
Thanks for a wonderful evening.
Thank you for your contribution. Father Paul, would you like to go next, please? We need to unmute you. You need to unmute you. No, we can't unmute. Come on, we can unmute you. There we go.
There we are. Within the Christian faith, then remembrance is so important. And obviously, as I said in another place, that you know, we have a deep respect for other faiths, and we regard members of the Jewish faith as our older brothers and sisters. And so a great deal of what the rabbi's just been saying, and many of the things said tonight, obviously we take things from each other, from each other's communities, and we take things that are so important that is there together. So for us as Christians, remembering is incredibly important. We remember not only on this day, but we remember generally in the Christian communities throughout the whole of November, an opportunity for us to remember those who've gone before us, those who have died, whether it was in warfare or our friends, our loved ones, our family members. So we have that focus during this month. I think we remember also, and Trevor touched on this, I think we remember those people, or we should remember those people who in our lives have shared their faith with us, and we should be giving thanks for the kind of the witness that they gave, because their witness and how they've shared faith, that's changed us. Yeah, that has given us perhaps a new moral compass. So each person has great opportunities of touching other people's lives. On Remembrance Day, I think we very importantly remember all those who gave their lives for our freedom. And I think within the Christian community, that remembering those who gave their lives so that we could be free reminds us also of the sacrifice that Jesus made in giving his life for us. I think we remember what God has done for us in our lives, and that has to be a very central aspect of our faith. Just 2 other little things. Obviously, celebrating Eucharist. When we celebrate Eucharist, we are remembering, because we remember Jesus' words, do this in memory or in remembrance of me, when we celebrate Eucharist. So we remember, again, each time when we're celebrating Eucharist. When we pray, we remember God's love for us. And then just final thing, a few years ago, when we took a group of people from the parish and from the diocese as well to Auschwitz. One of the things, I think it was like the second day that we were there, we brought the group together again in the evening, and we just spent some time reflecting on the time that we'd been there and reflecting on the times that we've been to visit the camps. And the group, that time, and each group that we've taken has sort of reacted in a different way. But that particular evening, that group, they said it is so important to remember, because they said remembering, as we are doing, it leads us to being better people. So that's faith and remembrance in the Christian faith.
Thank you, Paul. Lovely. And finally, in terms of our remembrance, Imam Hassanat, the importance of remembrance in Islam, please.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Remembrance is something that's very important, especially remembering those that came before us. And there is a very famous saying by our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, "Do not remember the dead except in goodness." That whenever you make mention of them in goodness, and especially those who sacrifice something for you. So in our, many people mentioned their grandparents today, that generation, and those that did give their life, we remember them, but also those that were alive and the sacrifices they made so that we're able to sit here in front of this wonderful technology and sit in the comfort of our homes and still see each other's faces. They all had a part to play. Every person in this theater of the world, everyone is an actor, everyone has a role to play. And we remember their roles and the positive contributions that they made. And especially when someone passes away in our communities, in the Muslim community, we have a commemoration every year. So on the day that a person passed away, there is a commemoration that takes place, and people and family members get together and they share stories of, you will hear many stories of this person did this for me, or this person helped me out. And no one would know, like that. We had someone passed away recently, and the members of the family, people were calling them that they'd never heard of. They were saying that we knew your father, who helped us in this particular problem many, many years ago, many decades ago. So when we remember, we remember the goodness of those that went before us, and remember them in a positive light. And someone mentioned about preaching to the converted. Yes, most of us on this particular group at the moment are probably on the same wavelength when it comes to these gatherings. But one of the things that I get from this particular event is that I get an encouragement that even though we're all kind of on a similar wavelength and we don't need to be preached to, but we get encouragement that there are others like us, and even though we're not physically present in the same room, we give off this energy to each other to continue the good that we are doing. And that good is to reflect upon, especially our past and the sacrifices of the past. And imagine if we didn't have this remembrance. We've had these wars and so many difficulties, especially since 2001 onwards. Now imagine if we didn't remember. Imagine as we human beings, if we forgot what happened in the Second World War and the First World War, and how much pain we inflicted on other human beings. If we take away the remembrance, I personally think we would be at a worse place in terms of our collective human history or human presence than we are. So more remembrance, more reflection is better for the soul, and I think it's better for all the souls of all human beings. And I hope that this year of difficulty passes very quickly, and I pray for everyone, myself, everyone here, and especially it's so good to see, because one of the things that really is kind of close to my heart is the shrinking of the space of faith in the public sphere. And there are those who are proponents of deleting faith from the public sphere and making it something that just happens inside a closed room in your house. But faith has so much to offer to us. And one of the things that it offers is comfort. And we have so much to contribute to society. And I think to bring it out in open like this, it can only be good. And thank you so much, Warren, for organizing this, and everyone else who's part of this. And especially also thank you to the leaders of other faiths who are present today and listening to me. I've really enjoyed listening to your reflections and your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassanat. Thank you, everyone. I'm not going to mention everyone again by name. Thank you for being here. Before we go, Sharon's going to conclude the evening for us. But I'd just like to emphasize and agree that the essence of remembrance in all our faiths in so many different ways is important. The importance of remembering today on Remembrance Day and remembering those before us and remembering to learn. There's been a lot of good stuff put in the chat. Joan, thank you for all your comments in there. In particular, Susan, for the reference to the websites to the First World War, all of you, and for staying beyond the time. But I hope you all agree it's been a very worthwhile evening. And Sharon, could you?
Just before we go to Sharon, sorry to interrupt, Warren. Can I just remind the members of the Bury Faith Forum, there is a meeting tomorrow, 10:30. Don't forget to join that. It's a very important meeting. Thank you. Sorry about that, Sharon. Go on.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Leah.
Thank you, Lita. Thank you, Warren.
And yeah, I think Hassanat's point as well about engaging with decision makers and making sure Faith View is heard. That's related to tomorrow morning's meeting, as well as hopefully other things that we can do and say as well. So thanks for that, Leah. Sharon, please.
Thank you. As our time together comes to an end, on behalf of the Bury Faith Forum, I'd like to thank everyone who had anything to do with organising tonight's event and all your hard work. Thank you very much. Especially our speakers, Cllr Trevor Holt, thank you, Trevor, and our panellists, Rabbi Saunders, Father Paul, and Hassanat, Ahmed, thank you very much. Thank you, Samara, for starting us off. To my fellow Bury Faith Forum members, thank you for your continued support in the work of unity in Bury. Thank you, everyone. Finally, a very special thank you to all of you who've been our guests this evening, and we hope to host you again in the near future. Our next event will be the Holocaust Memorial event on Thursday, the 27th of January. So please, if you would like to join us, just look out for more details, and we have yours now, so you will be informed. And I'd like to finish just with one sentence, the Cllr epitaph, and after that, I don't think there will be any more words needed to say. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
for
you.
everything tonight. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, for more news of the Faith Forum.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Warren, for your wonderful chairing the meeting.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you,
Pleasure.
Sharon.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Arnie.
Pleasure.
And Paul and Hassanat, I think he's gone, and Samia, Sharon, and thank you all for being with us.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. God bless.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, Helen. Take care.
Thank you, Warren. Hope to see you again soon.
We will. Hope so. Cheers, Taz. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, Warren. Bye, everyone.
Bye. I'll end it here.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Taz Khan. Sorry, I've not introduced myself to you before. I'm a police officer with the Greater Manchester Police.
Hi, Taz.
My voice is a bit funny at the minute because I'm isolating with COVID. But just to let you know, that was a great meeting. Really enjoyed it, and I would like to get involved in the future. It was Samia who put me onto this, and like I say, it was very informative.
Terrific. Well, just make sure we've got your email and we can keep you informed. Do you want to be added to the Faith Forum e-list so you get all the stuff?
Yes, please. You can pass it on to Samia, all my details, or she's already got them, and she can add me on if that's possible.
Yep. We'll get Alan to add you to the list. That's not a problem.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Wish you well. Wish you better. Take care.
You too.
Right. So,
Warren,
hello.
just a quick one. I didn't realise we had a meeting tomorrow.
Nor did I till this morning or this afternoon.
Right, okay, so it wasn't me. Have you got the link?
Yeah, I'll forward it to you. And Tom sent it out some point today, and then they sent out with a slightly revised agenda.
Okay.
So, but I don't think anyone knew until today it was on tomorrow.
Right, okay, so it wasn't just me then. I thought, oh my God, have I missed it?
I've got a
Right.
9:15 meeting, which I'm hoping it'll be finished by 10:30 so I can join. But if not, I'll be late, but I'll get there as soon as I can. So we shall see.
I thought I think this one was fantastic. This event, I think it's better than last one. So yeah, it was good. Anyway, we'll let you go, and whenever you get a chance, can you just send me the link for tomorrow's meeting?
Yeah. Okay.
Cheers.
Right.
Good night. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Let's stop the recording. Whoops.